Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our webinar on how to maximize your leads with AdWords. Just before we get into some details or get into the webinar, I want to mention that this is part of our new monthly webinar series called I Can Do That with DialogTech. So please look forward to future webinars with us every month. We will be getting into some nitty-gritty details with AdWords, so we'll send out a recording of the webinar after it concludes. And if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to submit those via the chat box, and we'll have a nice Q&A session at the end of the presentation. My name is Catherine Buchholz. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at DialogTech, and today I'm joined with Kelly Schultz, who is the Director of Digital Media and Analytics, as well as Ben Fleischman, who is our Solutions Consultant here. And we're going to dive into kind of taking a look at the paid search landscape, then shift over to how to maximize your leads in AdWords, and then Ben's going to take us through some implementation tips and some frequently asked questions that we received. So when looking at the paid search landscape, paid search has really seen a very steady growth year over year for quite a while, and in fact, between 2017 and 2019, we're going to see a 25% growth. So right now we have $32 billion of ad spend being invested by marketers into PPC. And this growth is really being led by continuous innovation from search engines in order to cater to consumer needs and ultimately the consumer experience that people are having with their paid search or with their search marketing experience. And this is being driven because we're searching in different settings, we're searching on different devices, and all of these different settings and devices are demanding different options when we get our search results, and that's what the search engines are working to cater to. But the biggest impact that's been had on paid search and what's driving a lot of this growth is actually mobile. So mobile really is the future for marketing, and at this point it probably doesn't come as much of a surprise to many marketers about how important mobile is, but in fact it now represents 65% of digital media time that we spend as consumers, and honestly that stat is probably even higher now. And it makes sense. We have our smartphones by our sides 24/7. I mean, if you commute on a train, your smartphone, you're probably reading the news or something. If you're at work, it's probably glued to your hip and you're bringing it to meetings. Many people, while they're watching TV, they're scrolling on their smartphone at the same time. And I know we can't see a show of hands, but hey, show of hands if you have woken up in the morning and the first thing you do is look at your phone, or if you're falling asleep in bed reading something on your smartphone. So it mobile's become completely ingrained in our lives. In fact, so much so that a new report shows that 52% of U.S. adults live in households that only use a cell phone. There is no landline. I mean, I'm guilty as charged, and this may be a generational shift that we're seeing more and more. So mobile is definitely the future of our consumption habits, but it's also the future of paid search. Mobile search has now surpassed that of desktop search. Over 50% of searches are conducted on mobile devices. But we're not just searching on mobile, we're also engaging and clicking and really engaging with those mobile ads. This chart here shows research from agency iProspect that's really interesting because it shows the shift from, it was conducted from Q1 2015 through Q2 2016, and it shows how much growth smartphone paid search clicks have grown, and it actually is eating into the clicks that paid search ads are seeing on desktop. So, I think it makes sense because we engage with mobile more because it's convenient. I mean, I know like I have a desktop at home, and even if I'm in the room with my desktop computer, I often just pull out my phone and search because it's faster. It's easier. It's right in my hand already. So that's all about consumer behavior, but how are marketers responding? I think it makes sense. They're responding by increasing their investment in mobile PPC campaigns. This chart here you can see in the yellow, it highlights the mobile growth in PPC ad spend. This year alone, we're going to see $22 billion spent, and that's only trending upward the next 2 years and beyond. So why are we talking about maximizing our leads from AdWords? It's because there is a conversion type that many digital marketers aren't necessarily attributing and aren't really capturing in AdWords, or maybe they don't even know that they can do that, and that conversion is a phone call. So we are seeing increases in calls to U.S. businesses from all forms of mobile marketing, but this is especially true for mobile search. This year alone, in 2017, we'll see a little over 80 billion calls made from mobile search to U.S. businesses. And these are calls that are occurring directly from the search engine results page. They're calls that are occurring from search landing pages as well. So it begs the question, why are so many people calling from mobile and mobile search? It's because we're experiencing a click-to-call revolution. You can see here a web form. Imagine that, let's say, imagine you're looking for a mortgage and you're doing some research. This was my experience a few years ago. I was doing a lot of research on my phone when I was commuting, when I was watching TV, just kind of sitting around the house, when I was on the go, just continually comparison shopping between lenders. I got to the point when you do a lot of research, but then you have some more questions and you want follow-up, and then you want some more quotes and information. Oftentimes on websites, you'll see to do this, you have to fill out a really lengthy web form, and many people, that's kind of cumbersome. You don't necessarily want to do that, but you also have questions that you want immediately answered, and it's confusing, so you have questions that you specifically want to talk to someone about. So instead of filling out this cumbersome web form, what do? You call. So you click the call from your mobile phone. It's really easy. It's a seamless experience, and like I said, it's not cumbersome for the consumer. And really, click-to-call is all about catering to the consumer experience on mobile. So we're seeing click-to-call on mobile websites and mobile landing pages, and we see search engines acknowledging the fact that consumers want to call from their smartphones, and we're seeing that through their continuous enhancements to the search engine results page and the advertising that consumers see on there, between the call extensions that you can add to your ads, through also call-only PPC ads, and even call buttons within local listings for businesses, among other enhancements. So people find it incredibly important to be able to call at every stage of the customer journey. It's not just research, it's not just post-purchase, it's also during purchase, and it's also when you're getting inspiration and you're looking for more information. So it's good to understand that people still do value the ability to call your business. And you can see that last slide we said 62% of people wanted to call during purchase. Well, it shows with business results. Calls are converting to revenue 10 to 15 times more than web leads, and they're actually influencing trillions of dollars in U.S. consumer spending. So in 2016, it was $1 trillion. So the moral is just that calls are valuable, and they are converting to customers and to revenue. So when you're able to when you have the ability to track and attribute those calls, just like you do for clicks, and you're doing that with call attribution technology like DialogTech Source Track application that we're going to dive into, you get a wealth of data. You understand what drove the call, what marketing drove the call, who the caller is, and what happened on the conversation. So you can use that information. You can see those search keywords. You can understand the geographic location people are calling from. And you can use what was said on the conversation, all of that, to inform the rest of your marketing strategies going forward. So now I'm going to toss it off to Kelly, and she's going to really dive into specific ways that you can view call conversions in AdWords, and then also optimize based off of that.
Thank you, Catherine. So first, I really want to dig into how to report on and actually view your call conversions in Google AdWords. So I'm going to go a little bit high level here and then get really in depth. And I apologize if some of you already know this, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky to figure out how to really configure your AdWords account to work best for what you're trying to look at. So first we're going to talk about setting up your call columns in AdWords. First, we're going to go over the campaign level and the ad group level because the setup is actually the same for both the campaign and the ad group level. And so whenever you're in your AdWords account, I have a screenshot of my exact AdWords account here. What you want to do is you want to navigate to the column section. There's a little bit of drop down, or there's a drop down right next to the column section. And on my screen you can see it's actually right underneath the keyword portion. And so here you want to be able to then click Modify Your Column. So you can see on the, I'm looking at it and it's on my left-hand side, and there's a lot of different metrics that you can actually pull in at the campaign and at the ad group level. And so at the custom column section, the way that I look at my conversions from DialogTech specifically is by bringing in some custom columns. So the DialogTech conversion is actually all of my call conversions that happen from a landing page. So this would be the use case where somebody clicks through the ad, lands on the landing page, so I've already paid for that click, but they make a phone call from there. So I'm capturing that in my AdWords account, which is great. And then the other one I look at is calls from ads, and those are the two that we're going to look at throughout this whole presentation. And calls from ads are the calls from call extensions. So whether it's from your click-to-call on mobile, or some call extensions do come through from desktop. Majority of them are mobile, but I'll show you how to look at that as well. So for both campaigns and ad groups, you can bring these two columns into your screen so that you can look at your landing page calls as well as your calls from call extensions at any point and filter your time frame. So this is an example of what it would look like at your campaign level. So you can see the campaigns have the budget, they have your status, we bring in impressions, clicks, click-through rate, all of our standard front-end metrics that we look at and help optimize. Then at the end, I have our converted clicks broken out. So I still look at people who convert online, but then I bring in the call conversions right after that. So again, the DialogTech conversions are calls that happen from a landing page. So I paid for that click. Now I want to see if they convert, very similar to the online form conversion. And then the calls from ads are the click-to-call, specifically from call extensions. And so to take it one quick step further on the campaign, just because this is going to be in some of the optimization, so I want to make sure you are able to then look at where your calls are coming in from by device, as Catherine just went into mobile being a top driver of call conversions. So here what you're going to do, you can see it, the little instructions in the black round bubble, but you're at your screen, you've already brought in your DialogTech conversions, which are your landing pages, calls, and then your calls from ads, and you have all your other metrics. So next what you want to do is you actually want to click the segment button, and then you can click by device type. So now you can start to see all of your metrics broken out by device. And this is really, really powerful, specifically in the last 4 to 6 months, because Google AdWords, we can now do much stronger device level bidding, which we weren't able to do between 2013 and really that first part of 2016. So this is a really nice feature, and you want to make sure that you're always looking at your conversions by desktop because you'll really be able to adjust your bid. So here you can see that a lot of my calls from landing pages come from computers, so desktop devices, that's important. And then all of my calls from ads actually come from mobile devices. So again, that's really important, and that's going to fuel a lot of the different strategies I'm going to talk about. And then you can see tablets with full browsers. I don't actually negative out all of my tablets from all of my campaigns. I do on some of them, not brand, because I want full impression share. But I actually don't have a lot of conversion on tablets, so we're going to talk about a strategy to take that into account as well. And then again, the same instructions that I just went over will impact how you view call conversions at the ad group level. So again, bring in the custom column. You can look at DialogTech conversions, your calls from landing pages, and then you can look at your calls from the call extensions. And this way you get a little bit deeper and can look at the ad group. You can also do device by, or you can also segment by device at the ad group level as well. So the next section we're going to talk about is viewing calls at the keyword level and at the ad copy level. So the setup is a little bit different here, and it's just the way AdWords is, the way you can configure your AdWords account. So here at the keyword level, you'll want to actually go into the segment box. The call conversions won't be available in the columns on this time. It's going to be at the segment level. So here you want to go to that segment. You can see it on my screen. It's right underneath the search terms. And what you want to do is select that drop-down, go to conversions, and then however your conversions are set up, you can either filter by conversion name, conversion category, or conversion source. And so the way mine are set up is I filter by conversion name, so I can see the DialogTech calls, and then the and then the calls from ads. So you play around in your account. You'll be able to see what the conversion names are in your tools conversion section of your AdWords account. It's different for everybody, so I won't go too specific into that, but obviously if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. So that's how you look at calls at a keyword level. And actually, and here's the example. So you can see I have a specific broad match modified call, and I have all of my metrics for that keyword. And then underneath it, I can see how that keyword is doing in terms of conversions that are either form filled, or the DP calls is actually the calls from the landing pages in this case, and then the calls from ads are the calls from a call extension. So now I have call conversions down to the keyword match type, which will really help fuel a lot of the optimizations for keyword level bidding, which we will get into. And then next, the ad copy level. So again, the same setup here. When you're in your ad copy level tab of your AdWords account, you want to segment by either the conversion name or the conversion source, whichever is set up in your account. And then you'll be able to see what types of conversions that ad copy is driving, which is really strong, again, for any type of A/B testing and even some landing page testing. So you really always want to make sure that you are bringing in all conversions, including the click-to-call, the call extension conversions, as well as the calls from the landing pages. All right, so I see call conversions in AdWords. Now what do I do? Okay, great. So this is one of my mottos here, and a lot of people will hear me say that. I have the data. Fantastic. But what can I do with the data to actually fuel my account and make my campaigns and my performance better? Because data is phenomenal, but you have to use the data. So in this next section, I'm going to get pretty deep in terms of some different AdWords data scenarios. So your AdWords data looks like this. What do I do? So I have scenarios at every level. I'm covering a lot that I've experienced over the past 7 to 8 years, I guess, of my paid search career. But if you have any other scenarios that you need help with, absolutely feel free to, again, ask the question. So remember when we just looked at the call conversion reporting at the campaign level. So I now see all of my call conversions at a campaign level. Fantastic. What are some different scenarios that I come across, and what do I do with this data? So first, campaign level optimization. So if your AdWords data is showing campaigns with a high volume of call extension conversions, what do I do? You have one campaign that has a ton of conversions from the call from ads section. So what I do here is you want to definitely click into that campaign. And you want to find which ad group or ad groups, it could be multiple, is driving the high volume of calls. So this is where I'm going to start to become a broken record. You're going to hear me say a lot about segmentation. And why I say this is because of budget. The campaign is a very powerful level in AdWords because your device bid is set at the campaign level and your campaign budget is set at the campaign level. So a lot of budgeting decisions happen at the campaign. So what I'm going to tell you to do here is I want you to actually segment those ad groups that have the high volume of calls from ads. I showed you how to pull it earlier, and again, you'll get a recording of all of these slides, so if you forget, you will see it, I promise. So you want to look at those ad groups with the high volume of calls. And what you want to do is you actually want to take those ad groups and you want to put them in a new campaign. And you want to give that campaign dedicated budget. This will make sure that you do not cap on budget for your top performing ad groups that are driving phone calls. The next thing you want to do is you want to increase that mobile bid. So now you're going to have two separate campaigns, right? You had the one campaign that had a whole bunch of ad groups, and then you had a few ad groups that had the high volume of calls from call extensions. And you're going to take that out now, and you're going to build your own campaign with those ad groups. And you're going to increase the mobile bid, because now you want to get as much from those ad groups as possible. Do not cap on budget, or give more budget to it if you can. And then that other campaign, it's going to hopefully start to allocate budget to other ad groups and other keywords that you can find new top performers. So it's an optimization to improve your CPA as well as grow your account. On the flip side, you have campaigns with a high volume of calls from landing pages. So this is a case where people are clicking through your ads, they get to a landing page, whether they convert from that specific landing page or the next one, they're converting via the phone. So what do you do to improve that performance? Again, you want to dig in to find which ad group is driving the most calls from the landing pages. So again, those were the DialogTech conversions, not the calls from ads. And you want to segment those ad groups into their own campaigns for dedicated budget. And again, you want to increase the bid on the device driving those landing page calls. So I actually just saw a quick question, and I know that this is something that comes up, so I'm going to address it right away. If you want to do the reverse segmentation, you absolutely can do that. You don't want, if you're worried you're going to lose quality score on your top performing, you can leave those where they're at, and then do the reverse, segment out the lower performers into their own campaign, and make sure that you just give as much budget to your top performers as possible. So I actually do a high value, so I actually break out anything that's high value into its own campaign, but you can do the opposite way too if you're concerned about losing any quality score. It's just a personal preference on how you do it. You can always, and then I always keep focus on the quality score from there. So I hope that addressed the question that just came through. I don't want you to feel like you can't do it the other way, but there still is the key is segment. Segment out your top performers from your lower performers so that your top performers always get as much budget as they can suck up, right? Because they're your top driving, they're your top ad groups driving call conversions. So I'm going to address that question. I hope that helped. And again, on the calls from landing pages, remember, calls from landing pages can come either from mobile or desktop. So this is where it's really important to make sure that you segment out your campaign by device and see where those calls are coming from, whether it's desktop or mobile. Okay, so another campaign level optimization. So this is one that I actually thought of like in the middle of the night, how I did not remember I have to include this one, right? So a campaign with a high volume of calls, but it has a limited campaign budget. I swear so many of my campaigns have limited campaign budgets. And it's very common. It's been that way for my campaigns in all of the years I've been doing this. And the reason is obviously because you have to segment thousands of different keywords. And so when you start to bucket these keywords, there's always going to be one or two keywords that has a lot, or 10% of different keywords, right, that has a lot of traffic. And you're just going to start to limit your campaign budget. The key here goes back to segmentation. You do not want to limit the budget for those keywords, those ad groups that are driving all of your conversions. So again, this always goes back to segmentation, and I apologize if I become a broken record on this, but this is where I really have seen a lot of optimization and performance changes in my account, is by breaking out campaigns and giving dedicated budget. I never want my top 10% of keywords to be capping on budget. I want the other lower performer ones to cap on budget. so that I can maximize my CPA. Same thing with brand, right? A lot of us have brand-only campaigns because you don't want to cap on budget. It's the same thing for the non-brand, which are really becoming your most valuable because it's a lot of new customers that come in on non-brand. And then another key tip at the campaign level, take a step further. Look to see if there's a specific time of day that those campaigns, the keywords in those campaigns, are driving the call. That's really important not only for your backend, how you're receiving the calls, but also for allocating your budget to different times of day. And really adjust hourly bids to get the most out of your campaign budget. That's another big tip that I have really found to be a performance driver for my account. So again, this was the example of call conversion reporting at the device level. And so again, just make sure to always segment out so you see how to modify your bid. So some device, went too far. Apologize. There we go. So some device level optimization. So I referenced this a little bit when I was talking about the views. There are campaigns with high tablet traffic, but low conversion volume. I have a lot of those campaigns. And for brand, I leave it running because I want to have 100% share of voice on brand. Even though it doesn't convert, it seems counterintuitive, but that's my goal for brand. But for the non-branded campaigns, I absolutely decrease my tablet bid by a lot. And so that's where device level reporting is really, really valuable. You don't want to be spending budget on acquisition campaigns that aren't converting. But again, you want to look at every conversion type. So do make sure that you're looking at your converted keywords as well, so that if they are converting via form on desktop, you keep that, or you keep that money. So then what about campaigns with high mobile traffic but low call conversions? So again, we get a lot of mobile traffic the more and more times people are using their mobile device. More times than none, there's a culprit few keywords. And they're probably on broad match or broad match modifier or sometimes even phrase match, to be honest with you. And oftentimes, those few keywords are getting the majority of budget and they're sucking up your mobile campaign level budget. So my recommendation is to either pause them. If you don't want to pause those, choose just the few select keywords and run a search term report. Google will show you what keywords are getting a lot of traffic on mobile so that you can either negative them out or just go ahead and pause them, because you don't want to be driving up a lot of clicks if nothing is converting. So that's really where it's important to look at every conversion type at the device level. All right, so ad group level reporting. So your AdWords data at the ad group level is possibly showing. You have an ad group with high keyword count. So best practice, I think, is about 5 to 10, maybe 10 to 20 keywords in your ad group. I think it's 5 to 10 is best practice these days. But we have thousands and thousands of counts, or thousands and thousands of keywords. So if we only have a few keywords per ad group, our campaign management and our ad group management is just very robust. So I know a lot of us do have ad groups with a high volume of keywords, specifically the non-branded. And that's okay, because there's a tactic we can take to move through that. So if you have an ad group with a high volume of keywords, and you have a high volume of calls, what you want to do is you want to find the exact keywords driving the calls within that ad group. So that's where you want to really segment out again. So back to the same question, you can either segment out the lower performers and keep the top performers where they're at, or you can segment out the top performers and then just put a lot of effort into making sure that quality score gets back to where it is, which I do find you can do that, because if you have the top performers segmented out and the ad copies at the ad group level, you can really optimize, focus in on that ad copy. But either way that you want to do it, absolutely fine. The key is to segment. So this will help you to improve quality score and really, again, provide dedicated budget to those high value terms. And I say high value a lot because it's kind of what I've been grown up on in the paid search world. High value to me means the top performers. So you'll see in my examples, I have a lot of _HV. That means high value, just in case anybody was curious. And then the other one, ad groups with mixed keyword match types and high volume of calls. So this is really where it gets important, that you want to make sure that you have keyword match type level call attribution, because you need to restructure those ad groups. Again, do it whichever way you feel most comfortable in, but you do want to make sure that if you have ad groups with a high volume of calls specifically, you want to break everything out into an exact match ad group, a broad match ad group, and a phrase match ad group. If you're short on time, make sure to at least break out exact match. This is really going to improve your CPA, because if Google sees an exact match keyword and there's an exact match query, so somebody searches for the exact match, your CPC will be less because you have ad copy specific to that, and so overall your CPA is going to be improved. So that's a key one here. Do the best that you can to at least segment out keywords and ad groups that are driving calls at a match type level. Okay, so call conversion reporting at the keyword level. So this is where it really becomes important that you look at keyword by keyword, what's driving call conversions, right? So it's a little bit more difficult to get this reporting. You almost have to do an export, but that's why the campaign and the ad group level, looking at the call conversions there is so important, because it gives you an idea on where to dig into, right? So if you have 3 or 4 campaigns that are driving a high volume of calls, you dig in and you see the ad groups that are driving a high volume of calls, then you get to the keyword level and you can start to make keyword level bidding optimizations. So that's why I show you every step, because if you just look at thousands and thousands of keywords, it's tough. It's tough to manage that data. So I really say start at the campaign level, work your way to the ad group. Don't forget about the device, but then work your way to the ad group, and then work your way to the keyword level. Okay, so I have a few optimization strategies here. I think I have 4, so bear with me. I hope I'm not losing anybody. And again, you will get a recording of all these slides, and all of this is mapped out for you guys if you have any questions on it. So first, your AdWords data is showing you have broad match keywords with a high volume of calls. Oh, the vein of broad match. I mean, I love now that we have broad match modifier, because that helps, but broad match opens us up to such a wide array of target markets. And it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because we can spend a lot of money on 1 or 2 broad match keywords. So this is really where you want to run a search term report on just these few broad match terms, right? Because if a broad match term is driving a high volume of calls, that's great, but it could be a wide variety of different keywords, right? So you need to figure out which keywords are actually driving the call conversions. And that way you can add them on exact match. And again, add those keywords on exact match to a new ad group. Especially if you don't have them, it's totally fine to add them to a new ad group and then really build ad copy against them and make them as relevant as possible. All right, the next AdWords data shows 10% of keywords are driving 80% of your call volume. This happens also on a lot of online form conversions, right? So you have just a few select keywords that are really kicking butt and driving so much of your call volume. Well, the tip goes back to what I've said before. Make sure those 10% of keywords aren't capping on budget. If they are lumped into an ad group or a campaign with other keywords, they're sharing a budget with the other keywords. So it's really based on search volume at that time. And if you're doing ad group level bidding, which some of us do on ad groups where we don't have a bid tool or we just don't have enough time to do down to the segment keyword level bidding, those keywords are then sharing a bid. So always make sure to keep those top performing keywords, those 10% of keywords, in their own campaign and label high value. Here, I'm going to go back once more, just because on this slide you can see I have a campaign that says underscore high value. I have an ad group that says underscore high value. And so I put specific keywords in those, and that gives me a lot of notice. Kelly, pay extra attention when bidding and doing budgets and even doing ad copy testing, because I've got to make sure those 10% of keywords that are driving 80% of my call conversions are kicking butt, right? I want to make sure that I don't lose that volume because it's key to my account. The other great thing this provides, it actually gives us an opportunity for the other keywords that you have lumped in to perform, because we always want to find top performers, right? We don't only want those 10% of keywords to drive the volume. We want to find 11%. We want to find 12%. And so by giving those top performers its own budget, you actually give your other keywords an opportunity to rise to the challenge. And if they don't, it'll actually help you improve, and you can pause those keywords that aren't performing. Okay, stay with me, we're getting there. Your AdWords data shows keywords with high volume of calls from landing pages on the desktop. Again, make sure to segment, and this is where you need to segment into their own campaign, because that's where you can do the desktop bid. So that's a cut and dry one. Now, you get keywords with high volume of calls from ads and landing pages on mobile. Again, same theory as before. Segment those out and make sure your mobile bid is really high at the campaign level. Also, make sure to listen to those calls. We're going to get into quality a little bit, but always listen to any keywords that have a high volume of calls, just to make sure that those calls are good quality. And if it's a customer service issue, you know how to adjust your bidding accordingly. So that's a key. It could specifically be for auto, right? If there's a recall keyword that drives a lot of calls, it's possible that that is customer service. So just take that step further when you have the time. All right, moving right along, and we're on our last section of optimization, so stay with me for a little bit longer. Our call conversion reporting at the ad copy level. So again, this is really where you want to see your calls from landing pages versus your online form fills versus your calls from ads, so that you know what type of conversion each individual ad copy is running. And so I think that was a screenshot, actually that was a screenshot from before expanded text ads, but with expanded text ads, you can still have a mobile-specific URL that signifies that this ad is better served on mobile. Remember before we had the expanded text ads, there was a checkbox that we could click mobile preferred? Well, it's kind of the same way. So you have ad copy and campaigns that have high mobile bids, but you're not getting a lot of call conversion volume. So make sure you have call extensions enabled. Use mobile conversion-driven messaging, such as call now, call for more information, and again, just do a specific mobile URL. Even if your site's mobile optimized, by adding that mobile-specific URL, it triggers the AdWords a little bit that this should be served on mobile more often. And then last, your AdWords data shows ad copy that drives traffic to a landing page with a high volume of calls from the landing page. So again, you want to make sure you know if these calls are coming from desktop or mobile. You do that at the campaign level, segment by device, or the ad group level. And then you figure out the keywords that are triggering this ad. And my suggestion here is to actually duplicate your ad copy, refine the duplication, and then A/B test. Because you want to get as many calls as possible, assuming they're new customers calling in for a question, to make an appointment, to convert. So really hone in on making that ad copy something that you're A/B testing on other ad groups, because it's a top performer. Okay, so this is just a quick tip, how to optimize for quality calls. We get this a lot. A high volume of call conversions, you're getting a lot of call conversions, right? It's the same thing. You get a lot of form downloads or form conversions. But they're not converting into real revenue. So this is really where it's important that you want to get down to the keyword level, find out where a lot of the volume is coming from, and listen to those calls or review the transcription of those calls so that you know if it's a real lead or if it's a customer service or if it's something that's not quality. It'll help you save money by pausing those keywords. So some of the key data, hold on. Oh, good, it went. Okay, sorry, it didn't go on my screen. So some of the key components of monitoring call quality data is to really know the call that occurred from a real person. Get the customer demographics the same way that you would from any type of online form fill. Listen to the phone call, get some insight on the conversation. Know if it's a new customer, is it a returning customer for customer service. It actually helps you manage those calls better, but it also helps you with your acquisition and bidding. You want to get those new customers. You want to bid on those keywords, driving new customers. And also block spam calls, because anytime there's a click, you're paying for that, whether it's the click to call or click to a landing page and then a call comes in. You want to make sure that you're really monitoring those calls to make sure that they're top quality. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ben, who really works a lot on our implementation side, and he's going to give you some one-on-one tips on DialogTech and some frequently asked questions.
Thank you, Kelly. So the first thing that I want to discuss is why are DialogTech's integrations with Google products the best in the space. So when utilizing DialogTech's DNI application, which is called SourceTrack, one of the primary goals of SourceTrack is to make sure we capture the Google IDs for both Universal Analytics as well as AdWords. The Google Universal Analytics ID is technically called the UAID. This identifier has just about every piece of information a marketer could need about the visitor, as well as Google AdWords provides a click ID, otherwise known as the GCL ID. This identifier has information about the click, which is the keyword, the ad group, the match type, the campaign, really everything related to AdWords. Now, because DialogTech has both of these identifiers, what happens is when we pass a phone call to Google, it's Google who's attributing their data to our phone call event. So really, from a reporting standpoint, our phone call is going to fit in there nice and easy to read because it's Google's data associating to our phone call event. Now, when talking about phone calls, not every single phone call should be passed into Google AdWords. And DialogTech realizes that. So we built into our integrations the ability to set a duration threshold on phone calls. Obviously, all calls under 30 seconds are probably not the best calls to pass into AdWords. So typically, we see DialogTech users set a threshold of 1 or 2 minutes, really whatever fits the user's business needs. DialogTech also has the ability to set a monetary value for phone calls to be passed, and this is something that typically isn't used out of the gate because new users to DialogTech like to have SourceTrack running for a while so they can figure out how much a phone call is actually worth for them. And one of the best things about integrating with both Google Analytics and AdWords is the user can use the platform that they're most familiar with, whether it be Analytics or AdWords. In terms of setting up an integration with Google AdWords, it's really pretty simple. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be authorizing DialogTech to connect your AdWords account via APIs, and then really you're going to be filling out the information seen here. You can set up a value for all of your phone calls, as mentioned. You can set a category, really how you want to view that phone call. You can also do conversion windows, and then you can decide how you want to view these phone calls in terms of count. So what that means is you have the ability to pass every single phone call that comes in, even if it is the same person calling in, or we can utilize DialogTech's technology to see that the same person's called multiple times, so we're only going to pass that once. So if you do decide to go with every phone call to be passed into AdWords, it's important to note that you could get dual conversions for the same person calling in multiple times. When passing into Google Analytics, really all that's needed from a DialogTech standpoint is we need to know the Analytics account ID, we need to know the custom metric, and then you set up your minimum call duration. From an analytics standpoint, you will be creating a custom metric, but that is something that will be thoroughly explained during onboarding. And then lastly, you'll want to create a goal around your phone call event so you can import these phone calls from Analytics into Google AdWords. So there's really two common practices to integrating phone calls into Google AdWords. And the first one is going from Google Analytics into AdWords, and this is typically used for tracking phone calls from landing pages. As I kind of just mentioned, what you're doing is you're creating a goal in Google Analytics around our phone call, and then you're going to import those goals into AdWords. Now, the nice thing about doing this through Google Analytics is Google Analytics will dedupe all of your phone calls before they get into AdWords. So Analytics will see that the same person has an event associated to them multiple times, and they'll only pass that once. And a couple benefits to integrating through Google Analytics is you can utilize both platforms to use these calls. So if you are familiar with Analytics and you're more comfortable there, you can see it there, or you can see those phone calls in AdWords. It's really the most, it's to be honest, the most commonly used integration path as well, because people like to view both platforms. One of the cons to using this integration is it can take up to 72 hours for Analytics to pass a goal into AdWords. So if real-time bidding is needed, this is probably not the best route to use. The second way to integrate into AdWords is to just do it directly in there. We'll pass all calls directly into AdWords, and that was set up via the screenshot shown earlier. That's where we do an authorization of AdWords. That's where we do an authorization from DialogTech to talk to your AdWords account via the API. So what's great about this is you have the ability to control the conversion window as well as that price and value of how much that phone call is actually worth to you. And again, you can also choose to count every call. So you do have the ability to dedupe those calls on your own as well. So the benefits to going this route is the calls are passed instantly and will allow for real-time bidding. A couple of the cons would be if you're not auto-tagging, this solution will not work and you'll not be able to see calls within AdWords or Analytics. And the reason is all of these integrations are kind of hinged on us capturing those Google identifiers. So the most common questions that we get during onboarding and in terms of AdWords is, how come my call counts do not match DialogTech and Google AdWords? So one of the important things here is if we are deduping our phone calls, obviously phone calls within DialogTech are not going to match in AdWords. So if the same person calls in 15 times, within DialogTech we will count those and display you all 15 of those phone calls. AdWords, however, is only going to count that phone call once, so your call counts are going to get off. But it's nothing to be alarmed about because that is something seen every single day. The second most common question we get is, where do I see my phone calls? And as Kelly had explained earlier, it's all right there, and you'll be able to go back and look at those slides to look at that. And lastly, a most common question is, can we track Google call extensions? And the answer is yes. We do have an application that tracks Google call extensions. Everything's taken care of in the DialogTech account. You don't have to go back and forth between each platform. And lastly, it requires one phone number per ad group, and it's a very, very easy thing to set up.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben, for diving into some of the implementation questions and tips and tricks. And for Kelly as well, getting into the very specifics of AdWords and viewing call conversions in there. I just want to touch briefly on kind of, before we close this out, kind of what DialogTech does. And ultimately what we do is we're helping marketers expand the customer engagement that they can optimize. And you can see that very clearly through this presentation. You know, by talking about integrating calls within the AdWords platform, that's exactly what you're doing. You're expanding the customer engagement that you can then optimize on. But it's not necessarily all of what we do. So this is a high-level view of our Voice 360 platform, and call attribution and analytics is just one facet of it. Kelly touched on spam prevention a little bit earlier, where you want to block those unwanted spam calls from disrupting your business and preventing you from getting accurate marketing ROI. Contextual call routing gives you personalized call routing that once you start driving those callers to your business, then you can more efficiently get them connected to your sales agents or call centers or different geographic locations. And then conversation insights, we kind of touched on briefly, where you can actually listen in on calls and get more actual insights from those conversations, as well as integrate all of this call data into the different MarTech tools that you are already using. So if you're already using a CRM system or a bid management system or a web analytics system and many more, you can integrate this call data directly into that, just like we kind of walked through for AdWords. So that's all we have from the presentation side of things. The next webinar for the I Can Do That with DialogTech series will be on February 16th of next month. And we'll send out some more information about that to keep you guys in the loop. If you have any final questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat box. And if you do want to get call conversions set up in your AdWords account, give us a call, and we're more than happy to talk through how you can do that. So we've had quite a few questions come through. So to dive into some of them, I think the first two, they're very similar from two different people. So I think we can answer them both with one go. So I think, all right, so the question is, does Google offer these additional columns, basically, or is that part of a plugin that your company, DialogTech, offers in conjunction with Google AdWords?
So the column is part of our integration into Google Analytics. We'll pass that as an event, and then typically when you import that from Analytics into AdWords, it's going to show up as the same thing as a form submission in terms of that goal.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. We had another question. Someone asked, I get that you know if the call was from a mobile phone, but how do you know it came from the computer? Or are you using a different telephone number?
We're not. You can still use the same phone number, and Google actually will put a forwarding number on top of it, and so that's where the device level conversions come into play. You can see mobile versus desktop. The other one you can see is there's actually, at the campaign level, there is a column called Call Metrics, or call details, excuse me, and there will be some phone call information on that one. You'll see that there's a standard phone call. That's actually going to lump in all of your desktop and mobile call extensions together. So you do want to look at it separately because I really feel that that helps with your device level bidding. But that's just some front-end metrics on that side. But otherwise I would say segment out by device. That's your key place to see if calls are coming from desktop or mobile.
All right, thanks, Kelly. I think this next one's probably for you as well. Do you have any tips on how to optimize for calls from GDN, which is Google Display Network?
Yep, so GDN is more of an awareness driver versus lower funnel intent. But I would say do some of the same tactics, right? There's responsive display ads in Google Display Network, and you want to make sure that you see, because those will get a lot of traffic, and those don't have call extension capabilities, but you want to still look to see if any conversions come through from landing pages. The other option, if you do want to do more of a mobile-specific click-to-call, you can run click-to-call display ads in the Google Display Network where somebody just clicks on the image and it goes directly to the phone feature on their mobile device. Key here, though, is to make sure that your image ad actually has the call to action, call now, so that the consumer knows when they click that that's the conversion that's going to happen, or that's the next step of the ad flow.
All right, thank you. And then I think this might be our last question right now. Can you address the most recent release Google has made with call extensions? Familiar with?
Yeah, so Google has recently put more and more importance on call conversions because of the increase in mobile search. It's just a very natural type of conversion. So what they are doing in some accounts, so you'll want to, I think you'll get a notice from Google if this is happening, but they are running automated call extensions. So whether or not you currently have call extensions, Google has the opportunity to add them from a phone number already on your landing page. And that's really, again, their focus on becoming more mobile optimized. If you do not want to be in those, what you want to do then, because you will lose a lot of tracking if you are opted in. So at your ad extension level in AdWords, there's a tab for ad extensions, and there's a drop-down box, and it's View Automated Extensions Report. And then there's an advanced section. And what you want to do here, though, is just opt out of the automatic call extension. That way you get full tracking, full attribution, and Google doesn't replace what you currently have in place with a standard number. So if you have call extensions now that you're running and really want to make sure you keep that keyword level data, you'll want to opt out. Or if you don't want call extensions at all and you're not running them now, still opt out so Google doesn't put them on there for you. So just something to keep in mind.
Great, thank you. I think that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the webinar, and thank you specifically to Kelly and Ben for joining and sharing your knowledge. We will be sending out, I mentioned before, sending out an email follow-up with the recording, so please keep an eye out for that. Right.
Yeah, and if you have any additional questions, you can also email me for optimization tips or anything like that. So just let me know.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.